David Ohito, are we expecting too much from the government again, given we have some soldiers who we are told walked over 100 kilometers from where they are? So of course, in between the happening of the attack and yesterday when they finally surfaced at the border, that in between nobody knew where they were. So are we expecting too much from the government, whereas really they actually cannot have that information?
Well, you know, Somalia is not Nairobi, and you must look at the terrain and the circumstances under which the attack occurred. This is a place that there's no basic infrastructure. There's not been a government for over 2 decades, so you didn't expect roads, you didn't expect telecommunication, you didn't expect somebody to walk to a booth and make a telephone call. No, that is out of question. But there are critical things that happen, and having talked to the generals for the last 4 or 5 days, I begin to understand why information remains scanty. You cannot, for example, attempt to account for officers who are dead until you secure the scene of attack or the defense position, do a mop-up operation, and then start counting these are the casualties.
I guess you also need to verify the casualties.
And two, there was also the challenge of rescue operation. These guys used explosives. You have to ascertain that the area is free from danger so that you don't lose more lives of the officers on the rescue mission, or you don't lose your aerial assets or any other assets you're using to recover bodies and also to save lives. So the place must be ascertained to be safe for entry first, which they did yesterday and got to the scene. So until you do that, I mean, even the most experienced general would not tell you we have this number of officers. And once they get that information, they've been fair enough. KDF, what I would say is that has not been consistent in the way they churn out information. Remember the lapse time between Friday and when they had the press conference on Sunday. I would generally not accept that as a good way of communicating. But we know they had really very difficult challenges in trying to manage information. And two, it's also difficult to give the information to the media about an officer that you've lost on the battlefront before you inform the family. There are channels of communication. Those are basic standards and procedures of the military. And even in the workplace like here, you don't expect us to put you on air that we have lost Mike Gitonga in an accident.
Before the family.
Yes, those are basic ethical decisions that have to be vetted, okayed before you pass that information to public. Yes, they have a lot of information, and I'm pretty sure the press conference that we're likely to have today will avail a lot more information. We had a good story today in the Standard talking about the commander of this camp or company, and
we're still missing.
Is still missing him. We have the story of soldiers who were captives, and the enemy has sent their voices appealing for help. You know, you don't want to add more trauma to their families by publishing that information, by saying Captain so-and-so or this officer so-and-so is a captive, and look at what, that is not resolving the issue. So it's a very difficult terrain to navigate. And remember, this is the first lot of Kenyan soldiers since independence that we are losing on a battlefront. So it's also new terrain for the media in Kenya, new terrain for the country itself. So it's not been as easy as that.
Watching the news yesterday, you saw there were a lot of families that were very distraught because they didn't get any information. Sometimes not knowing is worse than knowing the worst. So we have people who don't know what's happening, who don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, don't know if their families are alive, and they're not hearing anything from the government. So we have to appreciate the state they're in. They're in a state of flux. But at the same time, adding to what Ohito said, it's important to give the government time. This just happened a few days ago. There are so many things that are happening in the background that we don't know about. Trying to ascertain if this really happened, who's where, is this person really dead or not. And if we give them enough time, we're not asking, don't give them too much time. I mean, it's only been a few days. They can tell us this is going to happen and this is what we're doing and this is what caused it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And based on what Ohito has mentioned, should we also be telling the story of the challenges that the government may be going through in getting this information out? Because obviously it's not that easy. We seem to be on the side of where's the information. We're pressuring the government to give the information, whereas we also appreciate, based on having talked to the generals, the challenges that the government has. Paul, should we be telling more of that story of these are the challenges that the government has to go through, so that the families, as much as they really need to know, may also understand that it's not that easy. It's not something that you can just do overnight.
Let me just mention one thing. When you lose that kind of officers, first thing you need the morale of the remaining officers to go back to the battlefront and fight viciously, saying, I'm doing it for my country. And I think for this, Kenyans from both political divide, I'm happy even the opposition, supported the president, supported the commander-in-chief, supported our soldiers, and people have been singing online that we stand with KDF. Yes, we needed to give them morale so that they go back to the battlefront and try and decimate the enemy. And to that extent, I think Kenyans have stood with our soldiers, so that even those who are leaving the country to go and support operations and rescue their colleagues, they have the morale. But when you start painting the negative picture that what are we doing in Somalia, we need to pull out, I don't think that is a solution.
Let me ask
something else.
No, I want to disagree with my colleague here on one thing.
Yes.
When you talk about Kenyans, the morale of Kenyans, you also need to speak to the actual KDF people whom I've spoken to.
Yes.
And you must appreciate that from where most of them sit, they need the top organ of the government, and they need the president to be right there, to be seen, to be acting, to be seen.
Commander-in-chief.
As the commander-in-chief. You don't expect Kenyans to come up and rally so hard, which they are doing, I might say. But we need to have, this is a time where you have the president dropping every other thing that he's doing and come back to Nairobi. And be here with the soldiers. You can't, I don't think it's fair for us to say there's something more important right now than being at the airport to give these people morale. What is the most important thing right now? If you look at it from that perspective.
So in short, what you're saying is that we have not done enough to give them the morale that they need.
We have not done enough to give these people morale. We should really stand up and be sincere. We need the commander-in-chief to be in charge. We need to see him coming up and calling on Kenyans to support KDF. We need to see him at the airport receiving the body and honoring these men and women.
Okay. I also want to disagree with him about that, because the reason they've been using that, they've been using a picture of Obama receiving dead soldiers in the US. He doesn't do that all the time. He does not do that all the time. He does that once in a while.
We are not talking about Obama here. We are talking about, from where I sit, we are talking about the commander-in-chief of the Kenyan.
That's all right.
This is the president.
That's okay, but he cannot just, that's not enough. What he needs to do is put in safe policies that will make sure this doesn't happen again.
But that's
not just PR.
Yeah?
And to add on to that, we need to look at, when you mention the issue of morale, we need to look at what is it that they are facing in Somalia. We've not talked about the conditions of our soldiers there as we speak right now. These are some of the issues that we need to discuss, not just about how it looks, the optics. Let's look at the actual morale of the soldiers, how they're living, how they're surviving, and let's see what we can do. We have a very tight budget. Nobody talks about how much money is allocated to the military. They always say they need more money. They need more money. But when it comes to discussions about increasing cash, it becomes a whole political issue. So if it's about morale, let's the entire country go behind this idea that we need to support our troops.
In every sense of the word,
yes.
Financially and not just morally.